Hi there, everybody. My name is Hayden Rees-Jones. I'm the Policy and Development Officer for the North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children Partnership. Just like to welcome you to today's designated Safeguarding Leeds Network meeting. We've got a few interesting subjects on today. One of our presenters will be joining, two of our presenters will be joining us shortly, I hope. Otherwise, this will be a bit of a shorter session than I was planning. But other than that, please just sit back and enjoy what we've got to let you know about today. Just to be aware, if you have your microphone on, if you wouldn't mind please muting that. I can hear that someone's got the microphone on at the moment. Just be aware of background noise. I apologise for background noise if you can hear any from my end, because I'm having some renovations done and workmen are outside, so the joys of working from home. Other than that, this session, like I said, will be recorded, and if you've got any questions, please feel free to add those into the chat, and we'll try and answer them as we can. So just as a bit of note, like I said, the masterclasses are available and the recordings will be available from the address that's on screen. Not only that, you can also access the masterclass slides from our YouTube channel. It would be really great if schools would please subscribe to that channel as well, because there is a number of subscribers that you've got to have before you can actually name the channel. As opposed to having this really long and complicated name that we have there at the moment. So we just need a few more subscribers. If people could subscribe to us, you'll also, especially if you hit the bell icon, you will also be notified of any new videos that we upload as well, which would include all of our other masterclasses and other events. So what we have for today's agenda, there's been a slight change to the agenda from what was previously advertised in terms of the masterclass. So today I'll be talking about what the NYSCP is and what it does. We've also got YGAM, Sam Starsmore from YGAM is joining us to talk about the online gaming and the charity that they run, looking to support young people in relation to that. We've also, I'll be talking about the dark web. One of the things that a lot of schools have told us is that they want to know more about online safety. So I'm actually a COP ambassador, and I'll be giving a presentation in terms of what the dark web is and what it means in terms of young people. And then finally, we've got guidance for safer work in practice, which is Susan Crawford, who is obviously one of our LADOs. So kicking it off, we'll look at what is the NYSCP and what we do. So just in the chat, if you wouldn't mind, it'd be really helpful if you could say who you think we are, who you think members of the NYSCP are, and if you have any idea about what we do. If anyone would prefer, you can also just unmute yourself for a moment just to let us know what you think we do.
I guess it's a statutory requirement for all authorities to have a safeguarding partnership. It coordinates social care, police and health, and there are other stakeholders who can be invited along as well.
Yeah, that's a very good description of that. Yeah, we provide safeguarding information and training as well. and we are here to help young people and children. So it's good to see that we also have the multi-agency work and a range of other services offering support to all. We don't particularly offer the support directly, other than through our website and providing information, but we do we do pass on to partners who provide that and who are members of the partnership, and we do share good practice between partners as well. So I'll talk about how we do all of those things, but as has already been said, this is who we are. We're going to look at who we are. We'll give you an overview. We'll look at the multi-agency safeguarding arrangements within North Yorkshire, our structure, who the business unit are, and what relevant agencies are. Now, one of the things that a lot of people tend to get mixed up with is that they seem to think that the NYSCP is just another name for North Yorkshire County Council. That's not the same. That's not the same thing. Working together to safeguard children does require the three statutory partners to agree on ways to coordinate the safety of safeguarding, to coordinate safeguarding services, to act as a strategic lead and implement local and national learning from serious child safeguarding reviews. We have three partners which have an equal responsibility for the local area arrangements, and to fulfil these roles, the three partners also set out how they will work together with any relevant agencies. So in terms of the multi-agency safeguarding arrangements, the purpose of the multi-agency safeguarding arrangements is to basically support any local organisation and agency to work together in a system where we ensure that children's welfare is promoted, as well as safeguarding. Partner organisations and agencies also collaborate and share and co-own the vision for how to achieve improved outcomes for children and young people. And we have organisations and agencies that will challenge each other in an appropriate manner and hold each other to account in terms of what safeguarding arrangements that they have. There is also early identification and analysis of new safeguarding issues and the threats. We look at learning and how that's promoted and embedded into practice, and information is shared effectively to facilitate more accurate information and sharing and timely decision making for children and young people. These are the key partners under the statutory guidance. So we have Heather Pearson, who is our independent scrutineer. We have Mike Walker, who is from North Yorkshire Police. He's the temporary assistant chief constable. Obviously, everybody will be familiar with Stuart Carlton as the corporate director of Children and Young People Service. And then we have Sue Peckett, who's the director of nursing for Humber and North Yorkshire Health and Care Partnership. In terms of our structure, we have basically four subgroups which report to our executive, which consists of the three statutory partners. There are 7 locality-based groups which focus on child exploitation. We have 4 local safeguarding children partnerships which are shared with the Adults Board and the Community Safety Partnership. We also have obviously this terminally designated safeguarding network meeting, and we also have a further education focus group as well. In terms of the NYSCP business unit, the business unit manager is Hannah Ellingworth. Previously it was James Parks. He's actually moved over to Papyrus now. And myself as a policy and development officer. We also have Catherine Morrison, who is the MACE policy and development officer. We have currently carrying a vacant role, but I'm hoping that after interviews yesterday we will have fulfilled this for a child death review officer. So if a child dies, we have some statutory responsibilities in relation to that. And then Kirsty Tully is our new leadership and support officer. In terms of relevant agencies, as a school, you are a relevant agency, and it's important that we work with you. Obviously, children and young people are with you most of the time during working days. So obviously, you are a key partner for us. But we have a number of other partners, including early years settings, includes childminders as well as providers. We have a range of health partners. There are the health economy is very broad, as you would no doubt expect. We have criminal justice, so we look at CAFCAS, and we have the National Probation Service as well as the police. We also have the voluntary sector, so we will do a lot of work with the voluntary sector. We have commission services like Compass Phoenix, that's Community First Yorkshire, North Yorkshire Youth, the NYSCP, and any other voluntary sector groups which we agree by discussion or arrangements. In terms of local government, we work with the Department for Work and Pensions. Obviously, until we form into one tier council, we work with the district councils, and we always have. We work with health and adult services because obviously there is the transitional phase where children and young people move into adulthood. And also we work with public health and the Youth Justice Board. Other public services that we work with will also include the Army Foundation College, which is at Harrogate. We work with the British Army Welfare Service. There is also the British Transport Police, North Yorkshire Fire Service, the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner as well. And we also work with wider faith groups. We have a lay member, we have the NYSCP's Children's Champion, and we work with the lead members for schools and also for Children and Young People Service. And we also work with Youth Voice as well. Our overall strategy is Being Young in North Yorkshire, which runs from 2021 to 2024. And it's our vision that all children and young people are safe, happy and healthy, and they're able to achieve in North Yorkshire. To do that, we have 4 key themes. First off is to ensure that children have a safer life, to ensure that they are protected from harm, that they live in safe communities, and that they are supported by their family networks as well. The second theme, which is about a happy family life, here we look to develop through early help services, stuff like that. The families are empowered to be resilient, and that school years are happy, and in the community support networks help families thrive. In terms of the third key theme, we have a healthy life. So here, this is where we look to work with things like the healthy lifestyles and promote the health and well-being through positive choices. Obviously, we look to improve the mental health of children and young people, also the social and emotional welfare as well. And some of the questions that we do in the Growing Up in North Yorkshire survey, for example, are focused on that. And we reduce health inequalities as well. That's what we also look to do. The final theme is for basically making sure that when children go to school, that they are ready for school. We want to raise attainment at all levels for children, and also create environments where children can, really look forward to the future and have good aspirations in terms of what they can achieve in life. So in terms of our role, just some of the areas that I want to just touch on is how we do what we do, we have a framework for decision making, early help, our policies, and MACE and contextual safeguarding. So what we do and why, obviously we work with partners to identify themes, patterns and trends. We obtain a lot of information from partners, and we have a data set for that, and that's one of the ways that we do this. In terms of learning from audits and reviews, we do serious child reviews. If there is a serious incident, we will also do reviews of any cases where we believe that there is learning, and we also do what we call deep dive audits. It's not the same as the Ofsted deep dive audit, so if you ever get invited, and I know some schools have been invited to attend some of our deep dive audits, don't panic. We are not looking at you in the same way as Ofsted. What we are looking at is it's a deep dive into a single child's case where we want to gain learning to ensure that things are working the way they are, looking at obviously that signs of safety approach of, you know, what went well, what are we worried about, and what needed to change, so that we ensure that practice is improved. We share safeguarding information, anything from any patterns and trends, right the way through to any learning, or if there is any change in legislation, that sort of thing. And we also have the child safeguarding practice reviews. So in terms of those, then obviously that's another source of learning which we share information with partners for. And we also develop strategies, procedures and practice guidance as well. Obviously the overall aim for this is to improve the outcomes for children and young people, because what we want to do is improve frontline practice and, you know, make it the best it can be. One of the key things that you need to know about in your arsenal, if you're not already aware of it, is the Safeguarding Children website. The address is on the screen there. This is just what the homepage looks like. And another key thing that you need to know about is the framework for decision making. So the framework for decision making, which is obviously subtitled "The Right Help at the Right Time by the Right Person," has replaced what was known as the vulnerability checklist, and it's been developed to help support frontline practitioners who are working with children across any agency or organisation to make decisions about the safety and well-being of a child or a young person. It's basically a collaborative approach to support a shared ambition for the right help, which is delivered at the right time to by the right person and by the right service. So that is now what we refer to as our threshold document as well. So if you ever think about or think I need to know what the threshold is, this is a document for you to be able to understand that. In terms of early help, obviously rather than having children and young people go into, you know, potentially higher levels of safeguarding, what we want to do is try and build on families' sort of capacity and ability to manage their own resources, their own problems, dilemmas, and to resolve their own difficulties to prevent further problems in the future. So this is all about building up resilience within families. And early help is the response offered by all services in North Yorkshire who are in contact with children, young people and families when an unmet need is identified as outlined in terms of working together. So that document is available from our website on the link on the slide. Another area which I know a lot of schools had a great deal of interest in the Designated Safeguarding Lead Conference is MACE and contextual safeguarding. So under MACE we have the child sexual exploitation, child criminal exploitation. We look at missing from home, modern slavery and trafficking, harmful sexual behaviours and online exploitation. And we have a number of resources on our website to look at that. This is the resource, the Be Aware Knowledge Hub. And basically what these resources are, they've all been developed or put together to raise awareness about the development of child exploitation within the county. They cover all of the areas of MACE, and there is not only information in there for professionals, but there is also information for children and young people, and also for parents and carers as well. Another issue as well is obviously sometimes things don't meet the threshold for making a referral to the local authority, but there are sometimes things that you might come across which you think somebody needs to know about that, and this is where the partnership information sharing form comes in. So the partnership information sharing form is a way for you to provide intelligence to the police. Don't worry, the information provided is sort of confidential, and basically what we look to do is promote the partnership information sharing form across partners to ensure that if there are causes for concern, that they are monitored so that we can collect that intelligence and then use it with other information which may result in further action. So please promote this with the people that you work with, and that form is available to download from the Forms for Professionals page, again from our website. I mentioned earlier about the child death review process. So there is a statutory responsibility for ensuring that child death reviews are carried out by child death review partners, that's local authorities and CCGs. The child death review partners have to make arrangements to review all child deaths, whether or not those are expected or unexpected, of any child normally resident in the local area, and make arrangements for the analysis of the information for all child deaths. To do that, we have what's known as a child death overview panel, and I know that some of you might have already attended our child death review training as well. The overview, the CDOP, as it's otherwise known, Child Death Overview Panel, is a multi-agency statutory requirement for the local child death review partners, and this statutory process has been in place for a number of years, 15 years, in a matter of fact, since 2008, with guidance recently updated in Chapter 5 of Working Together, and the Child Death Review Operational Guidance, which was published in 2018 by NHS England. I'm sure a lot of you will already be very familiar with our procedures, practice guidance and 1-minute guides. We have a number of these available. We've consolidated all of the procedures, practice guidance and 1-minute guides onto one index so that you can easily access any of those. They're all in alphabetical order, but if you can't find what you're looking for, just do Control F and type in a keyword, which will probably help you find what you're looking for from there. But if you want to access those, they're available from our website. All that you do is just go to safeguardedchildren.co.uk, and then on the blue banner that's at the top of the screen, just move your mouse to Professionals, and then a menu will appear and you can select that from there. Obviously, one of the things I said was that we shared information to partners about how to improve, and we look at key learning from various different types of reviews. And the way we provide that information, as well as being in the procedures and our training, is we also produce what's known as 7-point briefings. We have undertaken a number of different audits and produced 7-point briefings for all of those. Those are available from the professionals area of our website under Learning for Professionals, and we would suggest if there's any things that interest you on that list, it would be worth having a look at. Obviously, mental health is a very key issue for children and young people and anyone these days. And we have our self-harm and suicidal ideation pathway. The purpose of this pathway is basically to improve the referral process and coordinate support and treatment that's provided to any children who self-harm or have thoughts of suicide. The pathway is basically for frontline professionals working with children and young people who identify themselves as either using self-harm as a coping strategy or require support as a result of this. But there is also some information in there for children and young people and also parents and carers. Another area that we support is private fostering. It's a nationally known problem that private fostering is generally, we believe, underreported. Schools have a duty to notify of the local authority of any private fostering arrangements that they identify within their schools. A private fostering arrangement is where a child is looked after by somebody who's not a direct relative for 28 days or more, or if it's, for example, a boarding school outside of term time for 14 days or more. So if you need to know more about private fostering, we have practice guidance, we have a 1-minute guide, and we also have a YouTube video which explains what private fostering is. Obviously, the fact that you're already here, you will know the fact that there is, we provide training, but we do monthly developments in safeguarding masterclasses. They have moved from being the last Friday of the month to the first Wednesday lunchtime of each month, apart from a couple of months, that being January and April, because of the holidays, which we've just pushed them back a couple of weeks. But we've listened to what schools have said, because many schools have complained about the fact that the masterclasses were on a Friday, and it always seemed to be when half term or the end of term was. So we have moved them forward to try and minimise schools having to miss classes because they're on leave. Some other helpful information for you as well. We have our referral form, we have our referral guidance, there's the consultation line, the numbers on there, and the link to the partnership information sharing form. All of those will be on the YouTube video, etc., when you get that. Does anybody have any questions in terms of what we do? In terms of the private fostering notification, it's still the 780 780 number that you would normally go through, but you will the guidance will run you through all of that, as does the 1-minute guide as well. It's well worth supplying your 1-minute guide to all of your colleagues as well, just so that they're aware. You know, it's very short. It's literally designed to be read in a minute. So it's just to make sure that everybody knows what to look for, because there is a statutory duty to notify the local authority, especially if the parents haven't notified the authority, which often happens. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, in that case then I would I'll just now hand over to Sam Starsmore, who is from YGAM, and is going to talk to you about their website and charity.
Thank you, Aidan. And yeah, thank you for inviting me along this morning. It's great to be with you all. So yeah, whilst I get my slides up, I'm just going to give you a bit of an introduction to me, bit of an introduction to YGAM. So I'm Yorkshire based. I'm in West Yorkshire, so not too far away from you guys, in Halifax. And I work for this fantastic charity, YGAM. We're a UK national charity, so we work in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And we actually just recently went through a brand refresh, but also set up a brand new 3-year strategy. And the tagline of that strategy is safeguarding our digital generation, with a really clear vision that every child and young person is resilient to and safeguarded against any potential harms that come with both gaming and gambling. So what I wanted to do today was just give you a little bit of insight in terms of some of the training that we offer, and hopefully it'll be of some use. I'll give you a little bit of information towards the end in terms of next steps. So yeah, I'll kick off into kind of what I'm here to say. Hopefully the slides are working okay. If not, just let me know, Hayden. But I'm going to introduce the Young People's Gambling Harm Prevention Programme. So this is the programme that I am the programme lead of. We have regional education managers up and down the country, like I say. It's a 4-year national education programme. We're currently in the 4th year of it now, so we've been going since 2020. And it's very much aimed to make sure that every single young person between the ages of 11 to 19 has at least one session on gaming and gambling throughout the secondary school period. But we also do a lot of work with primary education as well, 16 plus, colleges, etc., etc. So this programme comes with 4 key aspirations. The first one being young people's awareness. You've got to raise awareness if you want to prevent harm. Just like we would within when it comes to sex education, drink, drugs, strange and danger, knife crime, we're very much here to try and bridge that gap from a gambling perspective. So first aspiration, let's make young people aware of those potential risks that come with the activity of gambling. We also want to work with the youth professional workforce. So although our main target audience are schools, teachers, we want to also kind of look to work with football foundations, community trusts, youth centres, all these different environments which young people engage with. Third one, and it's a really important one from my perspective, guys, it's all around parents and families. If we're going to be delivering messages of awareness in an education setting, that message needs to be consistent and it needs to go home to parents, guardians and families. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that later on. And then the 4th one is all around age appropriate treatment. So we are in this programme in collaboration with an organisation called GamCare, who you may have heard of, and they launched back in September 2021 the first ever young people support service. So this is dedicated help, advice and support and treatment for young people, which again, GamCare do specialise in adult treatment as well, but it's great to see that we've got that platform for young people as well. Our training is quite interactive. Given that it's online, we want people to stay engaged, involved. I just want to give you a little taster of that. So I've just got a couple of questions. If everyone wants to jump into the chat box, multiple choice answers, A, B or C. What percentage of 11 to 16-year-olds do you think spent their own money on gambling in the last 12 months? 18%, 31% or 50%? And I'll just get a bit of a gauge of what people are thinking. So Matt's kicked us off with 50. We've got Susie at 31, Vicky at 31. Okay, vast majority going for those 2 high numbers. Awesome. So this was from the Gambling Commission report that was published in October last year, and it told us that 31% of 11 to 16-year-olds had spent their own money on gambling in the last 12 months. 50% of them, though, had been around gambling. So that might be parents gambling, it might be family members gambling, picking a Grand National horse or picking lottery numbers, etc. But that 31% of 11 to 16-year-olds had spent their own money gambling. And as you guys will probably all know, the vast majority of gambling products, you have to be over the age of 18 to participate. So what I don't want to kind of misconstrue here is that we're not seeing these 11 to 16-year-olds walking into bookies, setting up online accounts with casinos. This is more around them betting on arcade games at the seaside, for example. This is around them betting with friends. You might remember, or you might even see now, the game Penny Up, where you've got a group of people, everyone has a £1 coin, throw it at a wall, nearest to the wall gets all the money. I certainly remember playing that at school as well. So that's just to set a bit of a kind of foundation in terms of some of the numbers that we're looking at there. Last question. What year was the Gambling Act published by the UK government? Do we think 2014, 2005 or 1945? Seems a bit of a boring question, but it's really, really useful to understand some of the legislation side of things. While everyone's going back in 1945, Leanne 2005, Andrew 2005. Okay, so a lot more of a mix on this one. It was indeed 2005 so that's what we're going back 18 years now since the government last published a Gambling Act. And as you guys will all know, and I'll go into a bit more detail later on, you know, technology and the digital age has developed so much since 2005, and that Gambling Act has not kept up with the legislation. But again, I'll go into a bit more detail later on that. So just to kind of bring this to life a little bit for you, we're going back to that first quiz question with those 31% who had spent their own money on gambling in the past 12 months. That came second only to 41% of them drinking an alcoholic drink. I think 10, 15 years ago, we might have seen smoking a tobacco cigarette higher than gambling potentially. We might see e-cigarette kind of go higher and higher year on there. So yeah, we've seen a bit of a cultural shift and a bit of a change in terms of society. But what I find really interesting, guys, is that when we move over to the right-hand side, we can see something called comorbidity. So there's a really high correlation between these young people who are gambling, but also partaking in other risky behaviours. So, for example, that box in blue, of those who had gambled in the past 7 days, 41% had also drunk an alcoholic drink, versus the 10% who didn't gamble. Same for illegal drugs. Of those who had gambled in the past 7 days, 21% had taken a legal drug versus the 3% who didn't. Now, I'm not here to say one causes the other, but the data is telling us there's a really high correlation between young people who are gambling and also partaking in these other risky activities and behaviours as well. It's really important for us that gambling is now on the statutory framework. So it's something that, you know, it's an Ofsted requirement. It's part of the PSHE programme of study, RSE links, etc. So again, we're trying to bridge that gap from a gambling perspective, like we would with any of these activities as well. Now, just to give you a bit of a definition in terms of what actually is gambling. So the Gambling Commission define it as betting, gaming, or participating in a lottery. Now, someone who is suffering from gambling harms, that is gambling to a degree that compromises, disrupts, or damages family, personal, or recreational pursuits. It's really interesting that we've got the word family in there. Now, one thing that I missed out at the start when I introduced myself is that I'm in recovery from a gambling addiction and have been for around, well, just over 6 years now. And the harm that it caused, not just me directly, but my wife, it turned her world upside down when it all surfaced. My parents worried sick. My employers, you know, I wasn't very productive at work. My friends, you know, they were worried for my well-being. And that does have a knock-on effect. So what I'm trying to say here is it's not just the individual who suffers the harm. It does have that wider effect on, as it says at the bottom, the impact and well-being of the individual, but also families, communities, and wider society as well. So a little bit of insight in terms of why young people might want to gamble. What are some of the motivations behind that? This goes back to that report from October 2022, as we've just alluded to. 78% of them said they gamble because it's fun, something they enjoy to do. You know, it's got that chance to win, which is right next door to it at 36%. It's kind of an enjoyable thing for them to do. It's something they've probably never done before. And the next one, 23% said they gamble because they like to take risks, which I find intriguing. And that relates back to that comorbidity slide that we referred to earlier. We've then got 13% who said they gambled because it's cool. So potentially trying to fit into certain social circles, elevate themselves up that social hierarchical ladder. But also there's an element of peer pressure in there as well. If my friends are doing it, then I probably should be doing it as well. And then finally, 10% said they gambled because their parents or their guardian do it. And it's really interesting. We've got some statistics that show us that 67% of children were actually with their parents the first time they gambled as well. So it's kind of like that learned behaviour, and we go into a bit more detail on that on our parents programme as well. Brilliant. So I mentioned current legislation. We're going to go back down memory lane back to 2005 when these free snazzy phones were on the market. We had the Nokia 3310, the Sony Ericsson Walkman, and I had that lovely Motorola flip phone in red. Can anyone remember one of the most popular games that we used to play on one of these particular phones? No one's ever got this wrong, just to warn you. Yeah, spot on. Snake, straight in there. So we could play Snake. It'd take us about 14 minutes to send a text. We didn't have 4G, we had WAP. So we were very limited in terms of what we could actually do with these devices back in 2005. Fast forward a couple of years though, guys. We see the release of the iPhone in 2007, November 2007, and this just opened so many more doors to the online world. What we're seeing now is that when young people have access to these phones, they have access to a multitude of different games that they can download, and some of these games feature something called simulated gambling. Now, simulated gambling is where you will gamble on these games that you can see. You'll play roulette, you'll play slots, you'll play blackjack, you'll play bingo, but it's not classified as gambling because it's not real life currency that you're using. You're using virtual currency. Now, this scares the life out of me in terms of behaviours that have been embedded within young people before they reach the legal age to gamble. So again, some of these games are rated under the age of 18 because they're classified as simulated gambling. What you will find a lot though, guys, is that when you run out of virtual currency on these games, you will be asked, do you want to buy more virtual currency with real life money? That's called a microtransaction. It's like when you lose all your lives playing Candy Crush, you'll see a pop-up saying buy some more lives for £1.99. So it's continuing kind of getting you engaged with that game. The same with these types of games as well. And there's also the role of social media. You know, back in 2005, there was only really Facebook, MySpace, whereas now we've got TikTok, the video sharing platform, Instagram, the photo sharing platform, and we've got Amazon Twitch as well. Twitch, which is owned by Amazon, sorry. This is where people will stream themselves playing video games, really, really popular with young people. Similar to Gogglebox, where we would sit there on a Sunday evening watching other people watch television. It's a strange concept, but that's essentially what happens here in the gaming world as well. So what I'm trying to get over on this slide is that there's much more availability today in 2023 to either game, gamble, or watch gamers gamble than there was back in 2005 when we were chasing our tail on the Nokia 3310 playing Snake. Now, another quite substantial part of our training is all around providing you with a bit of kind of external knowledge. What are some of the outside influences at play when we talk about gambling? And advertising is a huge one. Professor Jim Orford from Gambling Watch UK stated that betting is increasingly seen as a normal part of supporting your team or following a sport. Now, we saw that back in the 2018 FIFA World Cup, where Sheffield University did some research that found that there was 90 minutes of advertising throughout that World Cup purely dedicated to gambling. That was more than any other industry, more than any other genre, 90 minutes purely on gambling. As a result of that, the industry introduced what we call the whistle-to-whistle ban, which means gambling companies can no longer advertise their products from 5 minutes before a game starts until 5 minutes afterwards. That's for all live sports on TV before 9 o'clock, apart from horse racing. So if you was to tune into a game on Sunday, Man City are playing Tottenham, I believe, at 4 o'clock, you would not see any gambling adverts from 3:55 until 5 minutes after that game stopped. That's to try and reduce the amount of exposure young people are seeing. But as you guys will probably know, young people's consumption habits have changed quite a lot over the years, and they might not, be actually watching it live. They might be streaming it. They might be watching it on catch up. So there are a few hurdles there. Match of the day as well, incredibly popular TV programme on the BBC. The BBC were very stringent when it comes to marketing and advertising. 241 times per episode. That was Goldsmiths University, who basically looked at 3 episodes of Match of the Day and found that gambling was referred to on average 241 times per episode. And this is not Gary Lineker or Alan Shearer talking about it. This is the more subliminal stuff. The players wearing the shirts with the gambling logos, the managers when they're getting interviewed after with the backdrops, the hoardings around the pitch with the advertising. So again, this is the kind of exposure that we just want to upskill people with. And then obviously the Premier League, it's the most watched league in the world. 18 of the 20 Premier League clubs actually have a partnership with a gambling company. And these are the 8 clubs that have a shirt sponsorship. And the reason I want to kind of bring this to life is that young people under the age of 18 are not allowed to wear these shirts. And that does present challenges when, you know, they'll question the authenticity of their shirt. Why can't I wear the same shirt as my mom, my dad, my hero on the pitch? And again, they're getting exposed to kind of that advertising, whether they're watching it at home or whether they're watching it at the ground itself. These are very lucrative deals for the football clubs from a commercial perspective. But there has been a lot of campaigning, a lot of talks around banning advertising when it comes to football and other sports. Now, in terms of gaming, one of the main questions we get is what motivates a young person to game? Why do they enjoy gaming so much? And there's so many different reasons, some positives, some risks. One of the main ones is so they can escape. It's used as a bit of an escape mechanism. You know, they've had a long day at school, for example. They're potentially struggling in certain social circles. So they'll utilise this as an outlet to kind of escape into another world. Competition. A lot of people will play some of these games to compete, and it will kind of feed into that trait. Exploration, you know, some of these games have huge maps that you can explore. You can kind of make your own characters. So that feeds in kind of into that autonomous side of things. To make money as well. In the training, we go into a lot of detail around esports, which is professional gaming. And yeah, it's quite jaw-dropping in terms of how much money is actually involved and some of the motivations behind young people wanting to make that money. Socialise, again, this is a positive, especially through lockdown a few years ago. When they couldn't see the friends or couldn't go to school, they'd utilise gaming to actually socialise with friends. Risk-taking, similar to what we spoke about on the gambling side of things, but also collecting items as well. So yeah, lots of different reasons and motivations behind why young people gamble. I'm just trying to give you a really high level summary, but as I say, in our training we go into much more depth. Okay, so I'm not going to play this video. This video, just in the interest of time, is all around microtransactions. One thing I will do is I will provide the link though to Hayden, and he can circulate that out. It's a quick 2-minute video just giving you a bit of an in-depth look at microtransactions, what they are, similar to what we spoke about with Candy Crush, etc. I'm going to focus a little bit now on the actual harm itself and how that harm can present itself, both now and in the future. When we speak with young people, we don't want to just say, you know, this is what could happen to you now, but this is what could happen to you long term. And it comes, you know, we've kind of segmented it into 3 brackets with health, relationships, and the social and financial impacts as well. Mental ill health, that's probably the main one there. Feelings of stigma and shame. Difficulty sleeping when it comes to gaming harms and heart palpitations, relationship breakdowns, that is very common, loss of trust. As I said earlier, you know, my wife doesn't fully trust me and I'm okay with that. I don't think she should. But there are, you know, other kind of avenues people can fall down when it comes to addiction, antisocial behaviour, reverting to crime and theft to fund the gambling, but also loneliness and isolation. This can take you to really deep and dark places where you just don't want to socialize with wider society. You don't want to go to work. So it's really important that we kind of make this relatable to young people. And then obviously social and financial, it can cause housing issues, reduced productivity and ambition, but also issues with work, with school, with college, etc. So yeah, loads of things to think about there. So I'm just going to give you a bit of a deep dive in terms of if you were to come along to our training, which is fully funded, it comes at no cost. We're really kind of fortunate that we don't have to charge for our training. Upon completion, you do get access to a whole host of different resources, both primary and secondary and 16+. We provide a long-term thematic spiral map, which is kind of created so that it's that long-term learning rather than just little bits here and there. We've got complete schemes of work from year 3 all the way through to year 11. We've also, as I said earlier, we've mapped them to the PSHE programme of study and RSE links. Really good for Ofsted, really good for senior leadership. Loads of PowerPoints that are interactive. They're also editable, so if you want to put your logos on, your colour themes, you're more than welcome to do that. And we also appreciate and acknowledge that just because you spend a couple of hours with us on the training, you know, you're not going to be experts in this field. So we've provided data sheets, resources. You don't have to go away and do any research yourself. So it's all in one place, so you can print it out and deliver it seamlessly in your own environment or setting. I mentioned parents earlier. We've also got a dedicated parents hub on our website. So this comes with a load of information around gaming, gambling, what are the most popular games out there, what are the kind of spotting the signs of harm, some conversation starters. We offer 75-minute parent awareness workshops as well, which are on our website. Again, free of charge to attend. So yeah, really, really important segment of our organisation that we bring parents on that journey with us as well. So in terms of what next, guys, I do want to leave 5 minutes if anyone's got any questions. So yeah, fully funded workshops and fully assured by City and Guilds as well. So it's really good for staff CPD. The workshops are for teachers, but we also have workshops for those who support looked after children, parents and guardians I've just mentioned. I know that Hayden just mentioned early help. So we've got workshops for social workers, family support teams. And I found it really interesting going through looking at one of the slides Hayden talked around those 4 themes. You know, we want young people in the region to be safe, happy, healthy and achieving. And that really, really much, you know, that very much aligns with some of the ambitions and some of the values that we've got here at WIGAM as well. Okay, and I'm just going to leave you with this one before I open the floor up, guys. Just a little bit of feedback that we've received over the last year from designated safeguarding leads who've attended the training or those in similar positions. I'm not going to read them through, so I don't want to come across as egotistical, but you can see there just reading through some of the nice comments we received. I think the training is very much a bit of an eye-opener for people. These are 2 issues and topics that probably are not on that many people's radar, but when you do dive a bit deeper, when you speak to students and young people, they're very much prevalent. And again, we look at the digital age that we're living in now and all that availability and accessibility that young people have. And I guess that's, you know, why it's paramount and important that we try and upskill and, you know, broaden that awareness as far as possible. And working with you guys in that safeguarding kind of sector, it completely aligns with our strapline, which is all around safeguarding our digital generation. So I've left my email on there. We've got our social media channels on the bottom as well. Please do feel free to follow us on them. I'm just going to pop my email address in the chat box as well if anyone does want to reach out for further information, but more than happy to take any questions over the next couple of minutes if anyone has any at all. There's no questions. I shall hand back over to Hayden. But yeah, big thank you again, guys, for your time this morning. And Emma, absolutely, once you've completed the training, you can access the resources free of charge.
Thank you very much, Sam. That's been a really interesting presentation, and I think I would like to invite you to come to one of our masterclasses and maybe do a podcast about it as well, if you would be interested in that. That'd be great, Hayden, absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And Sam's going to be here for this afternoon session, which is a repeat of today's as well, this morning's. Okay, so thanks very much for that. So probably linking a little bit with it because of the online aspect of it, one of the things that we've been told is that, you know, you want to know more about online issues. So one of the areas to look at is the dark web, looking at what is it, why children might access it, why it's a risk, and what schools should do about it. Is one of the things that I am is actually I'm a CEOP ambassador. So a lot of this is based on the information that's from CEOP themselves. So first off, I think the best way to start is about explaining what the different layers are of the internet. So there are effectively 3 layers. There is the open or surface web, the deep web, and then the very, shall we say, clickbaity dark web sort of title. So to explain what the open or surface web is, basically this accounts for approximately 4% of all internet content, and basically it's the internet in public websites. So this includes your basically your normal experiences that you would get through Microsoft Edge, Firefox, Chrome, whatever it is that you look at. It's all of the search engines like Google, Yahoo, Bing, online shopping such as Amazon or wherever else you go, and news sites such as the BBC and that sort of thing. The deep web holds the majority of the information, is probably around about 90% of all online content, which is private and not directly accessible by search engines. So here you're looking at your emails, things like your internet banking, and also private messaging as well. And then the dark web accounts for about 6% of online content, and the content is encrypted and it's not indexed by search engines such as Google, and there are a variety of services that are available on the dark web, some of them good, some of them not. So in terms of some myth busting about the dark web, to access the dark web is illegal is a complete myth. In most countries, that is, and certainly in the UK and most parts of Europe, it is completely legal to access the dark web. In countries like China and places like that, there is legislation related to it, but not in this country. Another myth is that all online crime takes place on the dark web, and the dark web in itself, even though it is being given by the press a sinister name, is not an inherently bad place. Crime takes place outside of the dark web as well as inside of the dark web. Cyber criminals are more likely to operate on the surface web so that they can actually target more people, because there is significantly less people who are using the dark web. Another myth is that the dark web is for tech-savvy people and for criminals. It isn't complicated to get on the dark web. Anyone can do it with a very basic knowledge of just in terms of what they need to do, which is only a few points. It's not complicated. You don't need to be an IT expert to access this. And another myth is that you're completely anonymous on the dark web. Dark web browsers will keep you anonymous by hiding your IP address and encrypting your traffic. But if you log on to your email or social media, you can be tracked when you reveal your identity that way. Dark web browsers also have some vulnerabilities, particularly the most prevalent one, which is Tor, which may mean that your traffic or your access might be exploited to reveal your identity that way. So why might someone visit the website, or visit the dark web rather? One of the reasons why is journalism. The dark web is used by journalists to report about their country because of maybe oppressive regimes, as it allows them to remain safe and anonymous while covering the news. Whistleblowers is another area, and other news sources can also use the dark web to communicate with journalists and each other safely. A common way to do this is through secure drops like the BBC. There are also news sites and blogs. There are lots of highly rated dark web news sites out there. People might access it for freedom of speech. It may be used by groups or individuals to express their wider views to wider audiences, and this may be everything from legitimate concerns to extremism. Activists also use the dark web. During the Arab Spring, the dark web was used to harness the platform's power to organise demonstrations and disseminate information. Another reason why people might access it is anonymity, say that correctly. Some people have legitimate reasons for hiding their identity, such as, for example, a whistleblower, a protester, or even a journalist. And the obvious one as well is illegal activity. The dark web can be used for a variety of illegal activities, including drugs, weapons, child pornography, and other services or other activities. Hacking and other similar forums are also available on the dark web, where people might share tips in terms of how to exploit systems or organize cyber attacks. Cryptocurrency related services are also sometimes prevalent on there. There is the access to games, whether or not that be maybe illegal gambling or video games or even pirating software. There's also other aspects in terms of some social media in relation to the dark web, and as I mentioned before, downloads of music, videos, and that sort of thing. So there are a lot of legitimate and potentially unlawful reasons why somebody might access the dark web. So one of the things, if you ever come across a child or a young person who's on the dark web, is this isn't something that they're going to stumble on by accident. It's not like the old days of when you used to type into Yahoo one thing and you ended up in a pornography site. You're not going to end up on the dark web from a normal web browser. Unlike the open or surface web, the deep web, and the deep web, you can't access the dark web by Edge or Chrome or Firefox or by a specialized search engine. It's impossible to access the dark web with any regular browser. And also you need to have access to a specialist browser, and you should also use a VPN or a virtual private network in order to mask your IP address even further when you access the dark web. The extension that dark web websites use is .onion, and the reason being is because the dark web is layered like an onion, and that's important in terms of the naming structure. You can tell when you're on the dark web if your web address doesn't end in .com or .co.uk or any of the other ones commonly used, but ends in .onion. The most common browsers to access the dark web include Tor, which is by far the most popular version. There is one called Whonix. People use this browser as it eliminates any possible DNS leaks, making privacy a key factor. There is Tails, which secures your connection and does not require any hard disk space to function, and also Subgraph OS as well, which is more of a complete operating system for you to replace Windows and access the dark web that way. So why might a child or a young person access the dark web? There are really a number of reasons why children and young people attempt to get on the dark web. The first one is probably curiosity. There will be hearing people talk about the dark web, seeing news stories about the dark web. It sounds, exciting. It sounds dangerous. Young people are more likely to do risk taking than many adults would. So that might be one reason. Another reason why children and young people might access the dark web is in relation to bragging rights, to say, oh, I've accessed the dark web and that sort of thing. They might have legitimate privacy concerns. Maybe, there are services online on the dark web where you can seek help and support, and it be very, very secure in terms of your identity. They might be wanting to access illegal content or buy illegal things or get illegal services, which is obviously a great concern. Or they maybe have been coerced or forced to access the dark web by someone. There are obviously other reasons why children and young people might access the dark web. These are just a few of them. So what are the risks to people, children and young people, accessing the dark web? One of the potential risks, the potential risk is basically more or less the same as accessing the open or surface web. So obviously it's a great concern if they divulge personal information from there. There is the exposure to harmful content and illegal content. There is the potential for children and young people to be exploited. As already been said, it's used as a platform for people to give their views on things and that sort of thing, and so that therefore children, young people might be exposed to extremism and radicalization. But if they get involved in some of the groups that are online and some of the discussion forums and that sort of thing, obviously there's always the danger of them being able to buy illegal goods. There are websites online where people can very easily buy drugs or weapons or various different other contraband things. And there's always the risk of people seeking to harm children or young people as well. There are online forums on the deep web which has very strong links or contain paedophilia. There are obviously inappropriate sites, there's pornography, there's all of the normal sort of stuff that there is on the surface web, but it's more hidden. I think one of the key things is that not all children and young people will necessarily want to access the dark web. It's it might be more children who are more risk-taking or more interested in technology who might access the dark web. And some young people may find that the dark web, once they access it and they see it's not the same as the normal internet, that they might have much less interest in accessing the dark web in the future. And I think one of the things that you need to do is talk to a young person about the dark web if you know that they've used it, or maybe that if they have an interest in accessing it, to try and understand why that they want to go down that route. I mean, especially for some of the forums for self-harm and suicidal ideation, it could be that young people are looking for groups of people who have similar sort of thoughts, which is obviously a red flag that you would need to then take appropriate action. So there are three things that you should really do when it comes to what you should do if a young person has accessed the dark web. The first thing is to remain calm, ask some questions, and to basically seek support for the young person. So the first thing is, don't make assumptions. Don't tell the young person that you're worried about the fact that they're accessing the dark web or anything like that. But obviously you need to be able to get a relationship with them and in a trusting one that will have them be more willing to talk to you about it. So remain non-judgmental. Don't blame them for anything in relation to what's happened while they've been on the dark web, and also remind them that you want to make sure that they're safe and that they're supported as well. what you need to do is basically ask questions to the children, child or young person as well. So ask open-ended questions to them. If you don't know much about the dark web, don't be afraid to ask them to explain it to you. And also what you need to do is seek to understand more about what was the motivations behind it. Why did they access the dark web? What were they looking for? Was it just curiosity? Were they being made to? Were they looking for something very specific? Was it just to upskill themselves? Was it bragging rights? Whatever it might be. And then you'll want them to feel that they can share their thoughts and feelings with you. So, questions to ask as conversation starters. Why did you want to go on the dark web? Pretty straightforward. Maybe you could also look to if they have, has there been any time when you were on the dark web that you felt uncomfortable or unsure about anything? You could also say, tell me what you saw on the dark web. You can also look to ask them to say, how did you actually access the dark web? And do you think you will go on the dark web again? Because obviously, you need to be aware of that information, understand what the child or young person is doing as well. So in terms of seeking support, if you think a young person is going on the dark web and may be at risk of immediate harm, then call 999. You can also call the NYSCP helpline on 0808 800 5000. You should also follow your internal procedures and the NYSCP multi-agency safeguarding procedures to make a referral, and contact the Children and Family Service on 01609 780 780 if you feel that the child is in need of support. So how can you keep young people safer online? Supporting families to understand the dark web is one of the key things that you can do. Obviously, this video will be recorded. You can share it with families if you wish to. You can make sure that you are using appropriate filtering and monitoring solutions. There is the Southwest Grid for Learning's link there, which will explain some of that to you. You can encourage and support young people to identify a healthy use of technology. So obviously schools do that through all of their training in terms of online, but obviously promote that in terms of the dark web as well. Let them know support is available and where that they can access it if they're looking for it, especially if they've got other concerns which has led them to going onto the dark web. And information for a parent about online safety is also available on the NYSCP website. The link is on the screen there as well. That will also explain to parents about how they can set up different IT systems and mobile phones and smart devices and their consoles to be able to make sure that their children and young people are safe. There is also further support. If there is a concern about online sexual abuse, then there is the COF Safety Centre. The link is there. If you become aware that a child has shared nude images of themselves, then there's a Childline and Internet Watch Foundation's report tool, which you can use to remove the images from there. They hashtag the image so that it's no longer able to be viewed or uploaded online. Or you can also call a message Childline if you're worried and want to talk to somebody for further help about it as well. So what are the responsibilities for schools? Well, all of these are basically in keeping children safe in education, but you need to monitor your school's online safety programme. Your school should teach children how to stay Safe online and adapted this for vulnerable children, victims of abuse, and pupils with any special educational needs. All staff should receive safeguarding training and also child protection training, which would also include what they should do about online safety and how to keep children and young people safe. Online safety is basically running an interrelated theme, and what basically this means is that your school should consider all aspects of the school life, such as your ethos, your environment, and your partnerships with parents. School leaders have to implement a whole school approach to safeguarding and related policies and procedures. And for more information, you can also look at Teaching Online Safety in Schools, which is a non-statutory guidance and also recommends a whole school approach to online safety. Keeping children safe in education also supports the use of 360 Safe safety self-review tool for schools to review their online safety approaches as well. Another key area is in relation to your online safety filters. So the governing body is actually responsible for ensuring that schools should have appropriate filtering and monitoring in place to protect pupils. This is all in Keeping Children Safe in Education 2022 in paragraphs 141 and 2. Schools should also be doing what they can to protect children from harm. Basically, it's the 4 C's. So it's looking at the content and filtering that way. So looking at pornography, fake news, racist or extremist views, contact such as with any adults posing as children or engagement with commercial advertising or anybody who is looking to harm children. Looking at the conduct, so making sure that what children and young people do online, sending of images of themselves and that they're not sending nude selfies, they're not recording bullying videos and sharing that amongst children and young their friends. And looking at commerce, so that you're restricting things like gambling, phishing, any internet scams, or any inappropriate advertising getting to your children and young people. All of those should go through your filters. When you're considering a school's filtering and monitoring systems are appropriate, you need to also consider the range of pupils used in the network, the age range of pupils, the number of pupils attending the school, and how often pupils will access the school's IT infrastructure and internet, how pupils will connect to the IT infrastructure and internet as well, and the cost versus the risk. And remember about things like USB sticks. USB sticks might seem like a very convenient way for children and people to bring in the homework and that sort of thing, but it is possible to put an entire operating system on a USB device and boot from that USB device. And then that can circumvent a lot of the security controls that you might have in place. So it's remembering about tying down your PCs so that they can't boot from USBs unless they're authorized in the BIOS and that sort of thing. Also remember that the prevent duty does require schools to keep children safe online through things such as appropriate filtering and web page content. So there is a lot of different areas where this is relevant. If you're worried about a child, follow your school procedures. Where there are significant immediate concerns for the child's safety, obviously you would contact 999. Everybody has a responsibility to make sure that they refer a child if they believe or suspect that a child has suffered significant harm, is likely to suffer significant harm, and or has developed developmental and welfare needs which are likely to be met through the provision of family services with the agreement of the child's parent. If you believe the situation is urgent but does not require police attention, you can also phone the customer service centre on 01609 780 780. That's during office hours. It's the same number outside of office hours, but it's met by the emergency duties team. If you do that and make a referral that way, then you are required to provide a written referral within 24 hours of your call. And if you want any more information, you can also visit the Worried About a Child page on the NYSCP website for more information. Okay, if there's no more questions, I will share the slides as has been requested for share with CPD. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand you over to Susan Crawford, who is the LADO manager, and she's going to talk to you about the guidance on safer working practices. Over to you, Susan. Thank you.
Morning everybody, Susan Crawford, LADO manager. What I'm going to do this morning is run you through a training package that is available to you. It's available on the Safer Recruitment Consortium website, and it may be something that would be useful to you for CPD. And again, it's one of those things, safer working practice has been around, as it says on here, for a long time. The original work was done back in 2006, which is a very long time ago. And it's one of those things that's been available for a while, but I think perhaps hasn't always been top of everybody's list for CPD. And because I think this is a fairly good slide pack, just wanted to talk you through it and give you an opportunity then to access it and use it as appropriate for any staff training that you might have going forward. So safe working practice, as we said, has been around for a long time. The most up-to-date version is the 2022 version, February 2022 version, and this is also available on the Safer Recruitment Consortium website. Keeping children safe in education requires schools to have a code of conduct. It doesn't say what that should look like, where it should come from. This one has been around a while, and I think a lot of schools have adopted it. But if you have something that works just as well, it's absolutely fine. There isn't a requirement to have this one. The only advantage I would say with this one is if you don't use it, it is updated, and therefore you can take the updates into your own documentation if you'd wish to do so. So the Safe Working Practice 2022, it's just a description of appropriate and non-appropriate behaviours. Initially consulted on and agreed back in 2006, been updated a few times since then. The main things in terms of updates were the COVID updates more recently, and again the COVID updates were really to do with online and with remote learning. So those are the things that came into that particular updated document. And as I said before, many schools have adopted it as their code of conduct, but it's not necessary that you do that. You just need to have something that is fit for purpose. So for me, who manages allegations on a day-to-day basis, there's lots of reasons why allegations arise. Sometimes it's to do with an organisation's culture, that it hasn't set out clear standards, clear boundaries, clear expectations, and that where things don't go as well as they should do, that people aren't made aware of that. Some things happen accidentally, and we aren't setting out to blame people for accidents. Sometimes it's poor practice, sometimes it is somebody who hasn't been properly trained, sometimes it's unintentional, sometimes it's just not following procedures. Failure to follow procedures may be because people don't understand the procedures or because they think they know better. Very often it's lack of training, lack of understanding, staff who are new into organisations, new into working with children. But we also do see occasions where people intend to harm children. And we need to be mindful of that, and that obviously fits into some of our safe recruitment practice as well. We do occasionally get allegations that are false. We also get allegations that have been misinterpreted, so that people have been, staff and children have been in some kind of incident, and the child believes that something has happened and it hasn't happened quite as has been described. And then clearly we will also get incidents that arise out of needing to handle children, RPI incidents, care and control incidents. So allegations arise for lots of reasons. Not all of them are concerning, not all of them result in harm to children, but as you're all aware, then the LADO would be involved in those where appropriate. When the guidance was first being looked at all those years ago, there was a view that actually, do we need something? Do we need a code of conduct? We've got professional codes of conduct anyway. Can we write everything down in a document that says this is what you can and can't do? and, you know, a degree of common sense in terms of governing actions. I sometimes find, sadly, that common sense is lacking in people's interactions on a day-to-day basis. And when you think, gosh, why on earth did somebody think that that was okay to do that? Then clearly some things do arise. So I think the general view was that guidance would be helpful. So it would assist individuals to work safely and professional. It would stop that ambiguity in terms of what is grey. And the guidance document, as you're perfectly well aware, doesn't take away all grey areas, but it gives us some expectations about which we can operate. And if the expectations in the code have been made clear to staff at induction and however else you do that, then it should be clear to people what expectations there are of them and what's not acceptable, and what actions will result as an outcome of them not following the code of conduct. So I'm not going to go through the document. It'll be a document that most of you are aware of, but it covers a whole range of issues. And clearly there are some situations that are more risky for staff to be involved in, one-to-one situations, transporting children, you know, intimate care, personal care. So there are some situations where, you know, the interaction with the child could cause us to be concerned about it, could leave staff in difficulties in terms of what they can and can't do. And the contents, if you've ever looked at the document, and I suspect most of you have, are fairly well laid out in terms of expectations and what we'd be concerned about. And it's a really useful starting point in terms of staff, particularly new staff to working with children and volunteers working with children, to be really clear about our expectations of them. So that's the content of it. The bits that were particularly amended more recently were to do with remote and virtual teaching. And I don't know if you've seen in the press recently, but there certainly has been an increase over lockdown and post-lockdown of individuals accessing children online for purposes that are clearly inappropriate. And one of the things we have seen again in our work area is an increase in individuals accessing indecent images of children. So the whole remote working, the whole online activities have caused some concerns in terms of individuals' behaviours. So clearly, as employers, we have a duty of care towards our staff, not only in terms of them having a safe working environment, but also some guidance in terms of how they can and should work safely. But of course, staff also have a duty to take care of themselves and anybody that might be affected by their actions, and have a clear duty to keep children safe as well. And that's through a whole range of things, including having respectful, caring and professional relationships with them. And it's when those things aren't in place and when those fall down that clearly that comes into our remit in terms of LADOs and concerns that you would have about suitability of staff to work with children in your setting. So the underlying principles, as they are with a lot of things, are that the welfare of the child is paramount. Staff are responsible for their own actions and behaviours and need to understand that they should avoid conduct which would lead any reasonable person looking at what they have done, understanding what they've done, hearing what they've done, to question their motivation and intentions. And ensuring that staff work as far as possible in an open and transparent way, and that we underpin that with a clear expectation from staff that if they are concerned about incidents and that they see something happening, that they've heard of something, that they have a duty to report that. And we'll come back to that in a little while, because I think this is one of the important areas. It is quite difficult for staff to say, I've seen a colleague doing something that caused me some concern. And one of the things we need to have a think about is how we can make that easier and more comfortable for staff to do. Some of the cases that we deal with when we are looking backwards after significant things have happened, there have been indications that staff were concerned, that they had seen or heard things that caused them to be concerned, and they didn't feel comfortable or able to come forward. And it's really important that we enable staff to have that comfort, to be comfortable, to be confident, because as far as possible, we want to stop things happening or catch them early, or give people who are beginning to stray off some clear guidance in terms of expectations. So, as you're well aware, records should be made of incidents, decisions taken. One of the things that we have found lately, and we are doing some more work on, is an understanding of female perpetrators, particularly sexual perpetrators. And one of the things that we we can see nationally and from our own local data is that sometimes the reaction to concerns about a female's behaviour to a child are dealt with and thought about in a different way to a male's behaviour towards a child in similar circumstances, so that we tend to have a bit more of an excuse and don't look at it in quite the same way. So a male behaving towards a child in a way that's concerned, if the female was doing the same thing, sometimes it doesn't cause that level of concern. And we have had some cases in North Yorkshire where children have made disclosures, staff should have been concerned about females' behaviour towards children, but weren't in the same way. And it's a piece of work that we're going to be doing some more on through the Safeguarding Partnership to try and understand why that might be, so that we don't miss things simply because of somebody's gender or indeed sexuality. Your staff will all be absolutely aware of the designated person for child protection, will be familiar with all the procedures, will understand their needs to safeguard and promote the welfare of children. That's what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and through your training. But it's also staff being aware that if they breach the law and any other professional guidance, it could result in criminal investigations and disciplinary action being taken against them. So we're operating within that framework. So the responsibilities of management are to have clear mechanisms by which concerns can be raised, making sure that those are repeated on a regular basis to staff so that staff don't forget about it, so that we've got written policy, we've got whistleblowing policies, we've got clear guidance that staff feel comfortable that there is a process to follow, whether that's internal to the school or external to the school, and that they're confident that they will be listened to. So being approachable, being supportive, say it's okay to raise concerns in a way that doesn't feel to be that's just appropriate, and we'll come to that in a little bit as well, because I do recognise that this is an area that is quite difficult for staff. In terms of employees, they clearly have a responsibility for their own actions and behaviours. They clearly need to act and be seen to act in the best interest of the child. They need to avoid conduct which would lead a reasonable person to question their motivations, take advice, discuss any misunderstandings with management, and identify areas of concern, vulnerability from children. Remove themselves from situations where there may be a significant risk. We often get allegations brought to our attention when staff have intervened with children. And one of the questions that we often ask is, was the intervention necessary? Was there another way of managing that situation? Was there a better way of managing that situation? We all know that if you intervene with a child where the child is dysregulating in crisis, that often doesn't go well. We know when we do our RPI and our restraint training that the person is compliant. Children, when you hold on to them in crisis, aren't compliant. And we end up then with difficulties where children sometimes get harmed because staff have been acting in the best interest, but perhaps there was a better way of doing it. Again, making sure that staff feel comfortable to say, actually, I've done that, but I'm not sure I did it very well. And also, reporting concerns about colleagues, whistleblowing is an important part of the overall employee responsibilities that they need to be aware of because they're working with children and vulnerable children. One of the things that's a useful discussion for you to have back in school with staff is how do we encourage staff volunteers to report concerns, and just to have the conversation that says what might stop me doing that and how can we overcome those problems. And again, this slides pack will be available to you, and it's one of those conversations in a staff meeting and staff training session that talks about staff's the expectations we have of staff and just begins to explore those concerns. This is the person that they sit next to in the staff room, this is the person that they go out on nights out with, whatever else that might be. But if they do see something that causes them concerns, it's really important that they have the confidence to come forward in a confidential way, and that those issues, if there are issues, can be addressed. Very often we find when we've got particularly serious incidents at later stages that staff did have concerns but weren't confident to raise them, and those concerns then continue or grow in size, and we really need to try and avoid that if we possibly can. And I think this is a useful discussion to have with staff to give them permission to raise concerns and how you want them to do that in a sensitive and confidential and appropriate way. So again, in keeping children safe, it says we need to have the culture and environment so staff feel comfortable to raise matters, and also things outside the workplace. If they're aware of behaviours outside the workplace which may have an implication for children's safety in the workplace, those are also things that need to be raised with LADO, with the managers. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that we can safeguard employees' welfare, so that we aren't having things raised that aren't appropriate, that staff can work and interact with children in an appropriate way. We have, as I said before, a very clear duty of care towards staff. And part of what these slides and the materials and code of conduct do is give staff a framework in which they can operate. And again, identifying where there are things that need to be more training, more support, etc. So we can manage children as safely as we can within our organisations. Whistleblowing is always a difficult issue. It's one of those areas that I always find is quite complicated, because my wish is always that if somebody is unhappy about something, that they come forward and they say, you know, here I am, this is who I am, this is what I'm unhappy about. But I absolutely recognise that there is a need for whistleblowing procedures where an individual can raise concerns and that they can be anonymous and held confidential within that process. So each individual member of staff has a responsibility for raising concerns about unacceptable practice. They can do that through the whistleblowing procedure and can remain anonymous within that. And it's important that, I mean, in keeping children safe, it links to the NSPCC whistleblowing procedures. Those of you who are in North Yorkshire schools, there's a whistleblowing process through Veritao. And also people can whistleblow to, you know, external organisations, Ofsted, to LADO, to governors, whatever is appropriate. And again, if people want to whistleblow and be anonymous, we need to respect that, because for some people actually raising a concern is a really big issue for them. And we don't want to prevent people coming forward. We don't want to prevent, we want to clearly prevent there being repercussions on individuals for doing so. And again, it always feels more helpful if a person can come forward and be, you know, name themselves, because again, we can engage with them. Where we have a whistleblower who we don't know who it is, it does create more difficulties. But I absolutely appreciate that that might be what some individuals wish to do. We know that there are lots of barriers to people coming forward. People are always anxious that they've seen something small and it'll end up in something big that doesn't need to end up in something big. So it spirals out of control. You know, children, you know, services get involved, police get involved. It doesn't happen that way. We are very proportionate in terms of what we do. We know we communicate with agencies and external agencies where it's appropriate to do so. And if it doesn't need it to happen, it doesn't need to happen. A lot of the things that come through to us, we can close down fairly quickly because they might not meet a threshold of harm. It may be that it's a training issue. It may be that you know, it's an internal matter, you know, management advice kind of matter. The only things we escalate are when they need escalating, when we need children's social care to be involved, and or they already are, or where we have evidence that there is a crime or possible crime that's been committed. Again, whenever things are raised, it will disrupt work. You know, people may have to be suspended. So there's always that element in terms of it will be really difficult if that person's not in, but that's not a reason not to do it. Yes, there may be a misinterpretation of what's seen. It may not be correct, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be raised. Because if it is wrong, we can quickly close that down. And again, people do feel they won't be believed or heard. And that might be within an organisation where the personal relationships get in the way of, or actually it's a senior person. Is your junior, you know, inexperienced member of staff actually going to raise an allegation about the head teacher or a senior member of staff in school? Or will they believe that if they do that, you know, their job is in jeopardy? Will they be heard? Who do they raise that to? And again, we mustn't get away from the fact that, you know, senior people within organisations do and have caused significant harm to children in the past. And just because it is a person in charge of the organisation doesn't mean that they are always suitable to be working with children. So it's just thinking about what stops people. And again, as part of your discussions with staff, it's how do you take that forward? What opportunities are they? If there is a concern that somebody wants to raise about a more senior member of staff, how might they do it? Might it be through the chair of governors, or is the view that the chair of governors wouldn't take it forward because they have a personal relationship, a close friendship with the head teacher? So it's thinking about those things and beginning to manage them. And again, it's just encouraging people to voice concerns, understand what it is that's concerning them, approach somebody and keep going, and giving staff permission to do those things, to encourage them where appropriate, but to give them permission to voice concerns, not in a way that feels I could say backstabbing. I can't think of a slightly better word at the moment. It's not vindictive. It is, I have seen something that concerns me about somebody's behaviour towards a child, and I need to report that because it needs to be looked into. So those are the things that are, important to give staff permission to do. And I think it's only by discussing code of conduct, safe working practice, that those things begin to be embedded into staff's understanding on a day-to-day basis of our expectations of them and our permissions to them as well. Again, checklist for individuals. You can see all those yourself. And again, it's just within your code of conduct, whatever format you're using, however you operate that, is making sure that staff in a sense can self-check themselves. Am I acting reasonably? Is there something I need to seek agreement on before I do it? How do I record it? What do I tell? Where things have gone wrong, it's people saying, actually, I think I've made a mistake there. I shouldn't have done that. It's far better that individuals do that and then pretend it's not happened, and understanding that staff are in a position of trust. They are role models, and the expectation of that. And again, checklists for individuals, I think, also includes not only action to children with whom they work, but things outside the workplace. So, if an individual is arrested for drink driving and has their child in the car, that will be notified to us via the police. If there's domestic violence incident, domestic abuse incident, and their children were present in the home when that happened, that will be reported in to us. And however difficult, embarrassing those things might be, it's encouraging people to say, please come to us. We will deal with these things confidentially, but we need to understand what's happening and whether there's any transferability of risk to the children we work with. There very often isn't, but we are, that is the kind of things that we need to be dealing with. One of the things that came in 2021 into keeping children safe in education was this low-level concerns. Low-level concerns aren't new. They've been around for a little while. It's something that we've always operated in terms of North Yorkshire, and differentiating between things where children have been harmed and things that are conduct issues where it hasn't met that threshold. So it's been in for a couple of years. Causes, again, a little bit of confusion, I think. But what we would always say from the Lado team is, if you're not sure whether it meets the threshold, just give us a ring. We can have a chat through it. If it doesn't meet the threshold, we'll tell you. If it's something that you need to do in terms of internal procedures, training, etc., you can get on and do that. So the allegations against staff, the criteria are very clear. They are statutory definitions. So behaved in a way that's harmed or may have harmed a child. So again, there's the normal categories that you deal with: sexual, physical, emotional, and neglect. The neglect cases are those that are generally may have harmed. So something has happened that a child could have been harmed by medication errors, for example, but it hasn't happened. Criminal offences in relation to a child would be obviously contact physical offences against a child, sexual offences against a child, but includes all our online offences as well: possession, making, distribution of images of children. The third one is behaviour towards a child that indicates they may pose a risk of harm. This sometimes arises out of a series of low-level concerns. So low-level concerns, training put in place, another low-level concern, training put in place. Actually, if the person can't or won't operate within the expectations we have, at some point children may be harmed, and therefore we may need to pull it back into the allegations process, because we have continual behaviour that says, if this continues to happen, and it looks as if it is there a risk of harm to children from that individual? The fourth criteria, again, came in a couple of years ago, and this is behaviour not towards a child, but it's behaviour towards an adult that's a transferable risk. This includes serious sexual or physical assaults against an adult. It includes drug offences, high-level drug offences, knife, firearms offences, and some of the things, again, that would fall under the prevent agenda. So if we've got those behaviours which will largely be in somebody's outside work life that might have an impact on their suitability to work with children, then those would fall under the allegations. And low-level concerns are conduct that doesn't meet a harm threshold, that falls under low-level concern, which often will be a training issue or a support issue, or could be a low-level disciplinary issue. But again, we're very happy to advise if you're not sure where it fits, and ensure that things don't get escalated to allegations if they really don't need to be, if they can be managed elsewhere. And if they do, then we'll pull them into the allegations process. I think, as always, it says it's really important that we challenge poor practice. We know from cases that we deal with where we ignore or collude or just turn a blind eye to poor practice, that the poor practice doesn't go away. We aren't as LADOs trying to stop people working with children. We're not trying to make referrals to DBS, TRA, wherever that might be. We're trying to enable people to work safely with children. And in most of the cases that we deal with, individuals may need training, there may be a disciplinary issue to it. But unless there's very, very serious concerns, individuals remain in the workforce. And therefore, what's important is that we challenge any poor practice and or poor performance as early as we can, and then it doesn't get out of hand, it doesn't escalate, that we pick up, as it says in low-level concerns, the concerns at a low level, at an early stage, give people support and training to work in an appropriate way with children, rather than things escalating, poor practice continuing, or somebody who is perhaps intending to harm a child beginning to get away within a grooming kind of process with behaviours and activities that could lead to very significant harm for children. So that's what I just wanted to cover this morning, is again something that I guess a lot of you will be familiar with. In terms of the Safe Working Practice document's been around for quite a long time. A lot of you will have incorporated it into your code of conduct. I think the materials, again, have been around for a long time, the training materials, but it's always useful for these things just to be raised again as appropriate with staff. There's a couple more slides in the pack that I haven't delivered to you this morning, so that it's a slightly wider pack, but we'll make it available to you, and I'll speak to Hayden about the best way to do that, probably just to direct you to the website that it sits on. The other things, there are a couple of other slides in there about quizzes, what's good behaviour, what's poor behaviour, that make it a bit more of an interactive session with your staff. But I would always encourage this to be part of, whether it's part of your annual update training for staff, whether it should be part of your induction for new staff, or whether it's one of those things that you pick out occasionally, a couple of elements from the Safe Working Practice document to talk through with staff in staff meetings. I think it's just a useful tool to refresh, update as appropriate. So that's all I wanted to cover this morning, but happy to take any questions if anybody's got any. If not, you've got at least 5 minutes more of the day than you thought you were having. No. Hayden, is it best for us to just put the link to the safeguarding, to the Safe Recruitment Consortium out? Is that the best thing to do?
Yeah, we can do that. Obviously, for those schools who have already set up the DSL email addresses, we can send it through to there. But we'll put it on the website with the masterclass slides so that people can access that.
Yeah, it's a very good presentation. It's a national presentation. I think it just raises that ability to have that really useful conversation. Yes, I think there is an expectation you have a low levels concern policy. I think you'll find there is HR have one. So either come through the North Yorkshire HR or through your other HR. They should, if you're academies, etc., independent schools, you should be able to get one. Whether it needs, sorry, just to clarify that, whether it needs to be a separate low level concerns policy or within your main disciplinary policy. Just take some HR advice on that. But you do need to just remember that it needs to be there.
Okay, thank you very much, Susan.
Okay, no problem.
Brilliant. Just before everybody goes, I just wanted to just draw your attention to the upcoming masterclasses that we have. The dates for those are on the slide that hopefully you can see at the moment. So we've got information about the Sexual Abuse Referral Centre. They're coming to talk to us about that. Obviously, for those schools that were involved, you already know about the fact that we've done Growing Up in North Yorkshire survey, and we'll be sharing the results of that. We've got Claire Barrowman coming to talk to us in April. We've then in May got the counter-terrorism local profile. That, because of obvious reasons, is not recorded. However, if you want to see that, you will need to actually attend that masterclass. And then we've also in May got an additional early years masterclass, which is on an evening. So if you've got early years in your school, it might be worth you having a look at that. Don't forget as well, we will be sending you out a link to give feedback. Please do give feedback in terms of the masterclass, and you'll be able to download a certificate for that as well. You can access our masterclasses on our YouTube channel. As I said before, not wanting to sound like the normal YouTuber, please like and subscribe, but please like and subscribe. And also you can access them if you want to go to the Safeguarding Children's Partnerships website in the area under professionals, which is Learning for Professionals.
Hayden, can I just come in? There's just whilst we've got folk here, if anybody is needing wanting to attend managing allegations training, or anybody in your school needs to do that, we actually have a session in Northallerton on Wednesday the 22nd of February. And if anybody is needing the full one-day accredited safer recruitment training, again, we've got one booked for the 16th of March. And they're both available to book in the usual way. It's just whilst you were here, I thought I'd mention it. Thank you very much. If anybody needs anything, then just drop me an email separately, and I'm going to escape now. Thank you. Bye now.
Hi. Thank you very much to everybody for attending this morning. There's some very nice comments in terms of what we've had. Obviously, if there is something that you want to find out more about, you want us to include in these sessions, please just type it in the chat, or just send me an email. We'll be more than happy to look to see how we can best support schools in that respect. Just some key links for you as well on our website. So if you want to go to our website, safeguardedchildren.co.uk, don't forget you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook, our YouTube channel. We're on Instagram, and we're also have a podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to our monthly bulletin, which comes out on the first working day of every month. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.